B. The Public Elections Act 2022. Second reading, committee stage, third reading. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Debate continues.
I understand that we are at the second reading stage. The minister had made his presentation, and the House had actually commenced the debate on the second reading. And it is that which we shall now continue. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, honorable members, you will recall that during the commencement of the debate on this bill, we made known that we'll be going to read the use the bill properly before we participate in the debate. And having perused the bill and having listened to the submissions from honorable members from the other side, Mr. Speaker, it is now observation that there are so many provisions contained in this bill that tend to alter and to amend the national constitution. One among the provisions relates to the dual citizenship with touches and concerns, section 760 of our national constitution. The second one also touches and concerns on a provision of this bill which allows for a 30% quota for women, also touches and concerns section 74 of the national constitution. And there is also another provision which touches and concerns section 41 of our national constitution, amongst the rest. So it is my view, Mr. Speaker, and before we address this bill, it is important and require that we come here by a means of a constitutional instrument. So I want to submit that the bill before us is not properly before us. The process by which the AG is approaching this House is not proper, because if we are here to amend certain parts of our constitution, I am afraid we'll have to take section by section and begin to go by 2/3 majority. So I want to submit and suggest that we shelve aside the debate on this bill and then come by the constitutional instruments that will actually address all these provisions that we all have.
Thank you very much, my colleague on the other side. The also concern with constitutional amendment, but the bill is a process. We had the first reading, second reading, third reading. And we started because it's not yet a law. For today, if you want to conduct elections, you use the present act, the parent act we have. This is just a proposal for amendments. We are fully aware of the constitutional amendments, and which we have to take 2/3 for every clause that has to do with section 180 of the Constitution, 180 of the Constitution, and which we are going to follow carefully. So in that light, we allow the debate to proceed. We have the second reading, we have the third reading, before enacted into law. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I assure you that next week Tuesday, we will lay the instrument that has to do the constitutional amendment. Next week Tuesday. Two, let the colleagues on the other side tell me the provision. If we have to discuss the constitutional instrument vis-à-vis the bill, let us first discuss the constitutional instrument before the bill. I am coming. Because this is a process, we are definitely going to come to the third reading and pass it into law. We continue the debate, and the instrument will come. We deal with the instrument first. Can you allow me to land? After that, Mr. Speaker, before, let me assure this out, before we enact the procedure into law, the bill into law, we must make sure we deal with the constitutional instrument first. That's the assurance I give you. We must make sure we deal with the constitutional provision first. They are going internet. First, the amendment of the Constitution before we can touch the bill. And the bill is a process. And let me tell you, it's also coming in the form of a bill too. So it's coming in the form of a bill. So we're going to lay them and we'll discuss them. Whilst also the public election bill will also be in discussion. Either the committee state or committee of the whole house. So let me assure you, we have not missed any page in this project. We are going to deal with them exactly. So for us, the first day, the very first day we started, and if you mean business, an election has to do much of what we are doing in our present day practice in politics. We have to look at the elections laws carefully, make them very robust, strengthen the institutions. That's the reason we are also concerned that we brought in this constitutional instrument. It was not properly brought to the House. I sent it back, and Tuesday to be in here for a proper debate, which we believe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Leader, I think what you're seeking to do is to put the cart before the horse. And respect, this is the house of procedure and this is the house of record. By maintaining, I believe we go by procedure. I keep saying the process by which the Attorney General has approached this house is improper, not the correct. So I wonder why we rush when it's already intimated this house that they intend addressing provisions that will touch and concern the Constitution. So if they have that intention, Mr. Speaker, it is not fitting and proper and in the interest of procedure that we put the step procedurally, sequentially as they should be, Mr. Speaker. So I still believe if they are actually genuine and believe that we are legislating procedurally, let us address the things systematically. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what my colleague on the other side is talking about. I said a bill is a process. A bill is a process. You have first reading, you have second reading, you have committee state, and third reading. I'm coming. This is a proposal in front of us. So I said, next week we start to deal with the constitutional instruments. So there is nothing going to change. Nothing going to change. That's one. Two, a bill. How can you say you have hidden agenda? Public provision. It's clear in the Constitution that if you read the fourth provision in 108 of the Constitution, there is no way you are going to amend every bit of the Constitution. You don't have 2/3. It's 2/3 for every clause, for every section you want to amend. It's 2/3. It's also a process. We have to vote here for every clause, for every section in the Constitution. We are not going to come out and just say, because we have proposal in front of us for the elections have to be amended, so we can just go ahead to do amendment like that. No. First, we have to get the constitutional instrument in the form of a bill, which we are going to deal with first before the final enactment of the Public Selection Act. Before the final enactment. And there are stages. Let me make this very clear. This is the second reading. We are on the debate. We have the committee of the whole house. We have the third reading and passing to law. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we are not missed the page. We are on track, and we are got it wise that we are going to this. That's why the debate. This is the issue you need to raise in the debate. That's why we have debate. Can I please my colleague? This is the reason we have a debate. that we need to do the constitutional amendment before the final enactment. We are not going to pass the bill into law today. It's going to be a process, Mr. Speaker. So I don't know why my colleagues are teaching on the other side. We are going to give so much robust structure to the institution we connect so I can perform that duty. That is the reason we are discussing it. And we are open to any amendment to the bill. We are not going to close ourselves because we think we have taken sides. No, we have not taken sides. We are looking at it for the interest of this nation. The last time they did the amendment for the Northwest Commissioner. They do the redistricting. They did the redistricting, which gave back to the Northwest and did not provide commissioner. 32-2 talks about only 4 commissioners plus the chairman, make it 5. So there, in the proposal we have before us, part of the constitutional instrument, we want to have 1 additional commissioner for the Northwest, so there will be a proper scrutiny in our election system. There will be a proper transparency in our election system. So we are not going to skew anything. Everything is going to be on the table for us to discuss. So first, we are going to discuss and bring all the issues out. These are some of the issues that we are going to raise. And I assure this house that on Tuesday, we are going to lay constitutional instrument. And we discuss and pass them into law if there is, or reject them if they are going to be, before we finally enact the election act. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, in response to the submission of leader of government business, I first of all refer you to the very section 108, of which you earlier referenced, and should be read holistic. Section 108, 2. Section 108, subsection 2, reads as follows. A bill for an act of parliament under this section shall not be passed by parliament unless A. Mark this word. Before the first reading of the bill in parliament, the text of the bill is published in at least 2 issues of the Gazette. The proviso, provided that not less than 9 days shall elapse between the first publication of the bill in the Gazette and the second publication. Now B. The bill is supported on the second and third reading by the vote of not less than 2/3 of the members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, let me show you a good precedent done by the learned Attorney General, which is commendable and which is the correct procedure. I refer you to clause 57 of this bill. Now in question, clause 57. Clause 57, the side note reads, form of general elections. That's the side note. Form of general elections. Now see how it is being phrased and how the authority that emanated this provision was being derived. And that is the correct procedure. I'm not saying the idea behind this is correct, but I'm talking of procedure. Now I read with your leave, Mr. Speaker. Section 57. Of this bill. Clause 57. Of this bill. It reads, with your permission, a general election of members of parliament, other than parliamentary members of parliament, shall be by, now see, A, the one-member constituency system under subsection 2 of section 38 of the Constitution to receive mother to child relationship. Before a child is born, there has to be a mother. So the child, just listen to me now. Either or still applies. Okay, let me read before I make my point. Or B, the citizen blocks representation system in accordance with Section 38A of the Constitution as set out in the 12th schedule. So in both of this subsidiary legislation, it takes authority, it takes legitimacy from the ground up. So the question now is, if someone has a question, you are bringing this provision as a subsidiary legislation, where did you get your authority? I got my authority from my mother. In the absence of your mother, how did you come to me? So this is a mother-child relationship. But in this case, Mr. Speaker, in this case, we are going to deliver a baby who is motherless. Is it possible? It is not possible. It is not possible. It is not possible. So we are saying we are not averse to amending those constitutions. The constitutional provisions, we are not averse. After amending those constitutions, then this subsidiary legislation cannot take authority from this constitutional amendment. Pursuant to social constitutional amendment, we are now bringing this law. But how can you start the first place? When I was in Form 4, Form 5, I started government. I got 3. Okay? Preliminary ideas. For information, my government teachers here. Mr. Cantoni. He taught me government, and I got 3. He taught me how a bill becomes law. He taught me how a bill becomes law. How a bill becomes law. I was not objecting the pre-legislative hearing, because that is not part of the process of how a bill becomes law. It starts from first reading. You know my point. It starts from first reading. And as far as I'm concerned, in the absence of the constitutional provision that gives legitimacy to any subsidiary enactment, any procedure from start is void. Because it's part of a process of which how it becomes law.
That's a non-starter.
It's a non-starter in the first place. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not trying to sabotage this process. We are in for a better electoral law. But not in a manner wherein you put the cart before the horse. So on that note, we submit that we start from where we ought to start. Because going through the first reading in the first place is void. It is part of the lawmaking process. And the Act says here, before first reading, the national constitution, before first reading, then the conditions were listed in A and B of section 108, subsection 2 of section 108, before first reading. So I submit in support of my colleague from Western area that this thing is void from start. It's void ab initio. And therefore, we cannot continue this way. Let us come with the constitutional provisions and amend them. Most of these provisions, don't be scared of 2 tones. You'll get it. Don't be scared, come with it. But let us go through it. Let us go through it. That is my submission, sir.
Thank you.
You said in the he said he's talking about before the bill is read and passed into law. I have told you this is a process. It's a process. It's not yet a law. It's not yet a law. Can you allow me, please? Can you allow some decorum and respect for people, please? Can you allow decorum and respect for people, please? You continue to say it, I repeat it. Mr. Speaker, it's a process, and a bill is a proposal. We have not yet passed it into law. Before passing into law, this is English language, it's not rocket science, straight, direct, forward. We are trying to correct abnormalities of the past administration of elections. That's exactly what we seek to do. It's a proposal to us. We are not seeking to enact it today. Unlike my colleague on the other side say, before you pass, no. We said, we continue the debate, raise the issues. Before passing into law, we will come with the constitutional instrument provisions. And we have put. You see, when you refuse to understand and listen, at the end of the day, you just follow people as if you are part of the dog's ride. I don't follow people like that. I analyze and argue out. This is a house of debate, house of law. Procedure 2. That's why we have first, second, third, and enactment into law. We do amendment at committee stage. In the debate, he raised the issues. And those are fundamental issues. And I reminded you that for every clause for the constitutional amendment, we need 2/3. We are not afraid of that. Not in the previous, where we took voice acclamation to amend the constitution. No, far from that. This parliament will not do that. For every clause we are going to amend, we will take a center set to vote 2/3. Would Mr. Speaker will preside. And let me assure you again that this is a process. We have started for the first reading. It means you are at fault. If you want to you are very sincere, you shall do this on the very first day. To stop Mr. Speaker if you are sincere. If you are sincere, if you really want us to do the right thing procedurally, what you are saying now, you shall do that for the very first day of the day. But one thing, you get quiet. If you are really sincere, you get quiet. And you said you are not going to debate. Alright, when you are done, because when you are done, I will continue. I hope you have respect for your position. So you have respect for it. No, we don't condescend to your level. And this business of obstruction, we need to stop. Section 90 of the Constitution is very clear. Our behavior in and out of Parliament. I am a leader. So you listen, when I speak, I try to convince people. Because I'm coming from a very serious bench. Mr. Speaker, if I'm sincere in doing the right thing, for the very first day, I object to the malpractice or the malprocedures. Procedures that are not right in the chamber. I will challenge it. I will not wait to go and bring issues to confuse the sitting for us. They did not. And he said for the first reading. But now I'm saying, the argument is that this is a process. A bill is a process. It's a proposal to us. It's not yet an act of parliament. So what you are saying, because you are on debate, these are the issues that you are going to raise. A, before enactment, we have to amend the constitution. We need a constitutional instrument. You understand, Mr. Speaker? They came to parliament, but they came with some flaws. So I sent them back. Point 2, for the previous administration, they took the redistricting, which came back to the region northwest. We have seen it all. We say we want to do constitutional amendment. But before we pass this bill of the proposed public election bill into law, we must make sure we take the constitutional instrument into consideration first. First, this is not an enactment. This 108 is talking about enactment and talking about procedures. Gazetting, if you want to force the first reading, the first gazette, talking about great difference as you have stated, so that it can be led in parliament for debate. But Mr. Speaker, except my colleagues on the other side, they want to obstruct the city. But I think they are not passing to law. And let me make my point that let us agree, let us start the debate. If you are sincere, the very first day you shall raise your objection. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I think at this point, okay, that's very good, because I was going to invite the leader of the
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
to make an observation or a statement before I come in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, you've been in this house for quite a long time. And you know for a fact that there is no law without a foundation to the Constitution. No law whatsoever. whether it's in fisheries, it's in forestry or security. Every law gets its authority and source from the Constitution. That is very, very clear, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the leader of government business said during the last sitting, not the last sitting in the House, but the last sitting when we discussed this document, we made it very clear to the Speaker that we are not going to participate in the debate on that date because we were yet to read and comprehend the document. We made it very clear. That's it, yeah, but we did not. We made it very clear in chamber that we wanted to read and understand the document. So the debate started, we did all the talking, we kept very quiet and listened. So then when we left, we've gone back to look at the document. And at the privilege, the learned Attorney General was there and some of the other supporting staff. The words that were used by the honorable member from Wellington, I used them in the pre-legislative hearing to say that putting the cart before the horse will not be good. The leader of government business has informed this House that they are working on the constitutional amendment, which is very good. But Mr. Speaker, some of those amendments will affect this very document we want to debate. So debating this document without getting the foundation, this House will not be doing justice to lawmaking. As it says, even though we want to give the Electoral Commission CIO more teeth and more effect, but we have to do it as per the Constitution. If we debate this document now, we'll be debating areas that might or might not come into fruition. And this House should not debate that way, Mr. Speaker. So I'll join my colleagues in saying, Mr. Speaker, that we are calling on you as the presiding officer to use your wise judgment and experience before in ensuring that we do not debate a document which is not completely proper before the House. Very important, Mr. Speaker. It says on Tuesday we should be expecting the document to this House, which we will look into. It is better we get the Constitution correct before moving to the next thing. Otherwise, we will be wasting time, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure none of us will want to waste the time of this House. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I'll join my colleagues and call on the leader of government business to kindly see reason in allowing the amendment to the Constitution to come. We'll finish with them, then we will go to where these documents will need their foundation for. I thank you very much.
Honorable members, honorable members, I would like to believe that I'm on record for being a great respecter of the sanctity of the Constitution. I'm on record on that. I have been and will always be. And under my watch, I want to assure all of you that I will not superintend any process in this House that will seek to depart or violate as much as a comma of the Constitution of this country without due process. I've listened to both sides. I have listened to both sides of the aisle. And I want to assure you that up to this point, which is my humble opinion, that we have not yet reached any stage that can or comes very close to being described as a violation of the Constitution. We've not yet reached that stage, and I can assure this House that we will never reach that stage. Unlike what the Honorable Member for Kwenadugu said, I would invite him to read very carefully Section 108, subsection 2. Very carefully. He will very quickly realize that the submission he made earlier is untenable and cannot sit well with the provisions of 108 subsection 2. Now, having said that, what I see us doing right now is to engage in the second reading of a bill for the repeal and replacement of the Public Elections Act of 2012. Yes, it is true that there are aspects of that bill that do touch and concern aspects of the Constitution. No question about that. And most certainly, I want to assure this House that the process that we have started in considering this bill will never be completed until the foundation upon which it should be based is well established. And that foundation is a consideration and passing of the required constitutional provisions. I hope I'm making myself clear.
Very clear. No, Mr. Speaker, you are confusing us. Mr. Speaker, you are confusing us.
I'm not confusing you.
No, I'm confused.
Well, let me elucidate further. I'm not here to create any subterfuge or to obfuscate your thinking. We are engaged in the second reading of a bill that you have observed touches and concerns certain important provisions of the Constitution. I hope you are paying attention.
Very much so. Very much so.
There is nothing wrong for us to proceed with the second reading of this bill and at some point come to a stop. And as the leader of government business has assured the House, by Tuesday, the relevant constitutional instrument will come to the House. We cannot then proceed further beyond the second reading. Beyond the second reading. To the third, let alone the third reading, to even the committee stage, without first considering those constitutional issues.
Will I be heard, Mr. Speaker?
You will be heard in due course.
Thank you, sir.
So I want to propose to both sides for your consideration that we proceed with consideration of the second reading of the bill and stop until further notice. And on Tuesday, we'll have the opportunity of the House being presented with the constitutional instruments. And we will then consider those constitutional instruments to finality before we revert. We revert to consider and complete the bill that is presently before us. That is what I would like to recommend at this stage. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one thing you know for a fact is that I am always very, very rational. But I'm going back to the point I made earlier and I don't know whether you have a copy of the bill, Mr. Speaker.
It's right in front of me.
If you go to the second to last page, page 140, memorandum of objects and reasons, Mr. Speaker. Maybe this will help to clear our position. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very clear. The first paragraph. May I read with your permission, Mr. Speaker?
I can read it myself.
Okay.
But read it for the edification of the public. No problem.
As you so desire, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. That the object of the bill is to repeal and replace the Public Elections Act 2012, Act number 4 of 2012, to provide for supplementary provisions to sections 32 and 33 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone. Very, very clear, Mr. Speaker. Very, very clear. So how can we talk on a bill, debating it extensively to conclusion, when we will still have to talk about sections 32 and 33? It's like Honorable Member said.
I didn't say to conclusion.
No. What I mean conclusion, the debate. That's what I mean by conclusion, the debate, not the passage of the bill. That's what I mean, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's like we cannot roof before doing the foundation of the building. Because even if you're roofing, there are going to be pillars to carry the roof. The foundation has to be there. And the foundation in this case is getting the Constitution right. But if we don't get it right, we will be debating fait accompli. It will be a fait accompli.
I don't think you and I had cross purposes on this one.
Yes, sir.
Except for a very minor area.
Yes, sir.
What I'm trying to say to you is debating and completing the second reading doesn't do violence to the argument you are making.
My point is that it does. That is my own point. Because the moment we conclude the debate, second reading is closed, we cannot go back to second reading. That is my position, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, but,
and it depends.
But there are still other areas, including committee stage,
Mr. Speaker,
equally important, where the bill will have to be considered line by line, page by page.
Mr. Speaker, as per this constitution, the relevance of second reading is separate and distinct from the committee stage. It's totally different. What you bring out during second reading is not what you bring out during committee stage. They're different.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Mr.
But
Speaker,
still it doesn't do violence overall.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, we are pleading with you in the interest of expediency. Since we will be finishing with the constitutional amendment before going proper to this document, let us shelve it, finish with the constitutional instrument, and then come back. It's simple, Mr. Speaker. We are not asking for anything much. We agree with you, we understand your position, but considering the fact that it will make it more fluid and fluent, it is better that we finish with the constitutional amendment so that when we debate this document, we will be debating it in light of an amendment we have made to the Constitution.
I'm sure you lose absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Mr. Speaker, I will tell you we will.
If you allow the second reading to proceed,
Mr. Speaker, we will. That's what I'm saying. We will.
I can see it.
But that is the point.
I don't see that.
We are not seeing it from the same lens.
I don't see that.
Yours are heavier than mine, Mr. Speaker. Yours are very heavy. But that's why I'm kindly calling on you. I'm pleading with you and the leader of government business for us to see reason in finishing with constitutional amendment before going to this bill program, Mr. Speaker.
Well, maybe you need to elaborate further for me to see the source and the rationale for your hesitance.
The point is, yes,
proceeding with the second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
With the second.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
No. Please. You know, honorable members.
Mr. Speaker, please.
No, I'm coming. Advise your members that if you don't have anything to add, allow the discourse to take place. We are informing and learning from each other.
Mr. Leader.
If you came here with a set idea or a set mind to be obstructive, please say goodbye to that mindset today. This is a very, very serious national issue we're discussing. And I don't want anybody to reduce this discussion to levity. It's very, very important. If you don't understand, then listen. Listen and learn. Carry on. As I said,
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Like you said, I said our lenses are not the same, so you wanted me to come back.
I want you to come back, yes, elaborate further the rationale.
Yes, sir.
Because why are you hesitating?
I agree with you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
It is not as easy as I would think, but it's very simple. Mr. Speaker, if we debate as it is, we will be debating not in piecemeal, but we will be debating an incomplete document. I'll tell you why. We are expecting amendments to the Constitution, which are also relevant to the eventual passage of this bill. We don't know what the outcome of those amendments are going to be. So how can we debate this in extenso and take it to conclusion, then something changes tomorrow, Mr. Speaker? So then 1 + 1 is 2. Tomorrow 1 + 1 might be 3. And then the debate will change all over, Mr. Speaker.
You will have absolute validity in that argument if you were to process this particular bill to finality. No. Because you cannot rebut.
No, Mr. Speaker, that is what I'm saying.
But you are not.
No, Mr. Speaker, this is the point where I believe you are getting it wrong. Mr. Speaker, during the second reading, our intention in this House and role is to convince each other across the aisle. That is what the second reading does, Mr. Speaker. You convince colleagues across the aisle. After second reading, you don't have that luxury, Mr. Speaker.
No, I don't see it that way. The second reading is predicated mostly on the minister elaborating on the policy that has informed and guided the government.
which he has done. So it's now for us, it is now for us, it is now for us to come back. Mr. Minister has done that already. It is now for us to debate his statement as against the bill. But Mr. Speaker, the bill is still not complete. It is not.
The minister has already made the policy statement
yes,
on behalf of the government,
yes,
that informed the government to come forward with this bill.
Yes,
okay?
Yes,
and the process of considering the bill had started
yes,
to the first reading,
yes,
going on to the second.
That is the point I made to you. We took a position in the last date. We've gone, we've read the bill.
No, I was not here for the first reading.
I said the speaker, I did not say you, sir.
Okay.
I meant the presiding officer there, Mr. Speaker.
All right.
No, there is no vacancy.
Because if I were here, maybe I would have taken things differently.
That is it.
But you allowed it to go to
we did not. First reading. Yes, it had to be in the custody of the House before we could comment. That is what we did with the PPIC yesterday. We did first reading. Now it's within our domain.
And you also allowed the second reading to commence.
But we objected. That is what we are saying.
Mr. Speaker, may I clarify that point? That he said he did not allow it. Yes, I was here. I'm a member of Parliament. Mr.
Speaker, let me say this. You have said in your ruling, advise members that we need to listen and engage in a civilized discussion. Anytime Honorable Giver wants to talk, they will just make objections or simile. And we need to respect him. He's a member of Parliament.
I have already advised against interruptions, but they're still continuing.
I will not accept that one.
I will
better be civil.
I will have again to appeal through the leadership of the respective parties here in Parliament to convey to their members the seriousness of the discourse that is taking place and not to make unseemly interruptions. Please, if you continue, the heavy hand of my legal powers will fall on you. And I wouldn't want that. I do not use the heavy hand lightly. I have tolerance to a very large extent, although it is not limitless. But carry on.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues on the other hand will agree with me that the first reading had commenced of this bill, and the second reading had commenced. We have started debating this bill. My colleagues on the other side, including the leader of the opposition, did not object on the commencement of the second reading. Members debated extensively. That debate is out there in the public.
And it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. We are done for the debate to continue. To say we cannot continue the debate when that debate, the second reading, had already commenced, Mr. Speaker, I think we will be contravening the process of this particular House. Mr. Speaker, secondly, if I listen to his argument well, he said unless and until constitutional instruments are brought to this House to amend those areas that are mentioned in the bill that has to do with the Constitution, we cannot continue. I take the view that he is suggesting that he has already considered that those areas mentioned we are going to approve, which is not the case. That is why he is suggesting that if constitutional instruments come and they are being dealt with, then the provisions mentioned in the bill, then we will debate on them. He's suggesting that we will have to approve those provisions. And the approval of those provisions can only be considered at committee stage. Whether a constitutional instrument come or not, if we get to the committee stage, a member can say, no, I do not agree with this particular portion of the bill. and hence let us omit it because of X reason. But we have not gotten to that stage. The stage at which we are, the second reading had commenced, we've started the debate, it's out there in the public, we have to proceed. My colleague will agree with me that in law, for you to actually prevent the process from going on, there is what we call preliminary objection. He ought to have objected before the commencement of the second reading. He was here. He was here. He did not object. I mean, members from either side, members from C4C, members from this end, we debated extensively. I debated. The public heard what I said on this bill. Other members debated. Why does he want to oust our own right as members of parliament because of his own interest? If he had wanted that interest, he would have objected right from the commencement of the second reading, which he did not. You cannot speak on your right and then have it. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. He has reneged upon his right of objecting for the commencement of the second reading. Mr. Speaker, I beseech you for us to proceed with the second reading as we have already commenced thus.
Mr. Speaker, I will not waste too many words. I will not waste too many words. I'll be very brief. Firstly, I still want to emphasize that we objected. One. Secondly, his perception of the way I feel is not correct. I am not anticipating that the amendments are going to pass. That is wrong. And thirdly, perhaps, and the most important, fortunately, he's a lawyer. He's talking about preliminary objections, and the non-lawyers are happy. As a lawyer, he knows that when it comes to jurisdiction, at any time, you can take jurisdictional objections. So that's exactly what.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Eddie.
Mr.
Eddie. Eddie.
We now realize that we take judicial objection at any stage of the proceeding.
Mr. Speaker.
Eddie.
We are talking about taking preliminary objections while we're talking about procedure. And when I started, when I started my argument, I did say we are taking our reference from section 1 to 108 of the Constitution. You know, section 108 of the Constitution. We are lawmakers, we are not trying to interpret the law. So we look at the law directly. As we read it and interpret it our way in terms of legislation. Mr. Speaker, there are many instances in the bill, and I repeat myself, proposal. The main instances on section 76 and other provisions that either has to do chapter 3 of the Constitution, the fundamental human rights. But you see, we have been passing around 108 freely for the edification of the public. I will take them one after the other to read. So people can understand where we are coming from. They did not say they are objecting to the procedure. They said they are going to read the document. They are not affair with the clauses in the proposal. That's what they submitted, and we agree. Even yesterday, we are about to discuss the PPRC bill. They said because the soft copy has not been fully disseminated, and I recommend that one. So we had a first review. I said, and I made a pronouncement through your speakership that we can continue when we have the full circulation of the soft copy, and the soft copy is in full circulation. The other one for the public elections bill, we said we want the public that announcement to make and react to that on in this chamber. That we are going to allow the public to make input. We did not argue on procedures. So tell me, allow me, I make my point. I have very respect for you, sir. This I have been saying that always. This is a law of procedural housekeeping. By the rule of law, we are not in the jungle. If in the jungle, there is a matter of rule of law. I want to read 108, 1 by 9 by 9, and to understand. Yeah? They say they cannot debate because they don't have the instrument. But you are giving an insight that the clause that they are going to amend in the Constitution section, the bill is giving an insight of that. So let me read 108. 108. Of course, I'm not bother to read 108 108 2B 2. A bill for an act of parliament. That is 108. A bill for an act of parliament under this section shall not be passed by parliament unless before the first reading of the bill in parliament, the text of the bill is published. The text of the bill is published in at least 2 issues of the Gazette. 2 issues of the Gazette. And that one, provided that not less than 9 days shall elapse between the first publication of the bill and in the Gazette and in the second publication. And let me come on in interesting one. B of 2. The bill is supported on the second, Mr. Speaker. There are processes. The bill is supported on the second and third readings. Second and third readings by the vote of not less than 2/3 of members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, they are saying they have created a picture to the people as if they are about to pass this bill into law. They have created a picture they are painted, which we will accept. They are just talking about if you want to amend the constitution or you want to discuss the bill, you should first do the constitutional amendment. So, we have the second reading, we are still on the second reading, and we are now for the third reading. Mr. Speaker, let me learn. You see, the truth. It's only the truth that can save us. Not to skew our mind because of political belongings. Mr. Speaker, we said for every clause in the Constitution state, for every clause we debate. For every clause we debate. And the constitutional instrument don't come in as if we are going to just say it, we are going to amend it because it's coming in the form of a bill. It talks about 2 processes. We are not completing the debate today. It's going to take the processes involving 108 2B in specific. So our police on the other side, on that very day today, they did not stop us to continue because of procedural issues. They said they are not unfair and they are real for their controls. And we are now saying today that look, this is a vital issue. This has to do with election and state is very concerned. People who are represented are very concerned. So what we should do, if you are unfair with a document now, you are telling us that this is a constitutional instrument, you should ratify or approve the constitutional instrument before we finally enact the bill into law. We accept. But it's not about not to continue the debate because we don't have the constitutional instrument. Nowhere is stated. Nowhere is stated that we should stop the debate because we don't have the constitutional instrument. But what we have assured our colleagues on the other side, for the sake of sincerity of purpose, for the sake of strengthening our electoral system, we say we can complete the Elections Act only if and only if we have dealt with a constitutional instrument. The issue is a constitutional instrument. Let me now my final point, sir. My final point. I really call that one. We are trying to correct the maladministration. Section 32. You did the redistricting. And we conducted the election which have never accepted. You created a region. You did not give an electoral commissioner to represent you in that region. Us. What he did, he just had the chairman and the 4 other commissioners. As responsible government we are correcting your maladministration. Don't stand in our way and allow us to do it in the interest of the state. You are telling us to stop the discussion because you don't have a constitutional instrument. Tell us in any instrument in your possession where we should stop the discussion because you don't have a constitutional instrument to amend. Let us be sincere to our people, sir. Let us stop this too much to politicize our ideas to the interest of this nation. It's strong. Let's stop it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe you are on track.
Hold on. Before I give you the floor, I think I have listened to 2 submissions here which seem to confuse the issues. First, the submission made by the honorable member from Kwenalugu, and I regret to say, second is the submission that you just made without the opposition. You both referred to section 108. No, leader of government is the You both referred the House to section 108. I cannot see, for the life of me, the relevance of section 108 in this particular debate right now. I'm coming. Are we dealing with a bill for the alteration of the Constitution?
No, certainly not. No.
That is what 108 addresses.
Yes. We are dealing with the bill. Yes.
For the alteration of the Constitution?
Of course.
I'm afraid no.
Okay, I will show you how.
No.
I will show you how.
You cannot, let me tell you something. Please. It is absolutely unacceptable, untenable to amend the Constitution indirectly.
Exactly.
You have to do it directly. Exactly. I'm coming.
I will write the lesson 41 and I will read. Mr. Speaker, allow us. Read, Mr. Speaker, allow us. I will read. So you are senior member, I will read so that you understand. And you respect the chair of the speaker. I will read. No, I will read, Mr. Speaker. Whenever Mr. Speaker or the chairman intervenes during the debate, any member can speak or offering to speak must resume his seat. And the House or the committee is keeping silent. I'm sure that Mr. Speaker, all the chairman may be heard without interruption. Then the commander is very senior member of parliament. And I have no respect for you. And respect the speaker, please. This is not good for us. It's not a good message for parliament. It's not a good message for us. Yeah? If we have a discipline we have, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to be able to emphasize as a member. They should understand. They should understand. We are here, we are disciplined. We have respect for the chair.
Okay, let's fine. You both professing discipline, and I hope you live up to your profession. Now, let's come back to the issue. I have heard mention being made of 108. 108 addresses specifically the manner in which the Constitution can be altered. The bill before us, I ask, does it address the alteration of the Constitution?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, yes. Sir.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The committee will be giving the floor.
Has been taking your role since morning.
And so also you and honorable
You have a specific question to
so it's also senior.
Mr. Speaker, you throw a question to the honorable member to respond. In his attempt to
The question was not directed to him.
you need to wait. Please wait. So who was directed to? So the speaker now ask questions to the
It was a general question. It was not directed to him.
from the speaker. So he's interpreting for the speaker.
All right, have you finished? Have you?
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what to
Okay.
do.
Have you finished? Have you finished now? Have you finished now? All right. Honorable member for Kwenalugu.
Yes, sir.
Would you say
Mr. Speaker, sorry, time is fast.
I've been interrupted by the procedures of the House, not by some leaders. Let me second that motion. I so second the procedure. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Now, this is a very interesting debate. It's a very, very interesting debate. I think in this fifth parliament, this is by far the most interesting debate that I've encountered. Now, let me then specifically ask the honorable member from Prejudice. In your opinion, the bill presently before us, namely the Public Elections Act, is it a bill that is intended to alter the Constitution? I want your honest opinion about it.
Mr. Speaker, clearly, this bill has abundant provisions that amounts to an attempt to alter the Constitution. And I will show you few of the following. Few of such attempts to alter the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Section 32(8) of the Constitution talks about misbehavior of the Electoral Commissioner as a reason for removal. One of the reasons for removal of the Electoral Commissioner. Section 32(8) says, for misbehavior, you can be removed. Now, this bill is trying to alter that provision in clause 5(1). Clause 5(1)(a) is saying, let it be gross misconduct rather than misbehavior. Clause 5(1)(a) is saying, let it be gross misconduct as a reason for removal instead of misbehavior as espoused by 1991 Constitution. That's one. Two. In 76(1)(a), 76(1)(a), for qualification to be member of parliament, 1A is clearly saying that you need not be a dual citizen. A dual citizen cannot be qualified to be a member of parliament.
No, it's not debating, it's answering the question.
I'm answering his question.
Please.
The Constitution says a dual citizen is not qualified to be a member of parliament. Now, Section 44(1) of the bill. Section 44(1), clause 44(1) of the bill is saying that is no longer necessary. In other words, if Section 44(1) should pass, then dual citizens will have no more conflict with the law in becoming members of parliament.
44(1).
Clause 44(1) of the bill.
Are you sure? Nomination. No, it's not there.
Yes, sir. It's not there.
Talking about this bill.
Yes, it's not there. Well, listen to me now. I will tell you. You're interpreting it. It's not I will tell you the reason for the absence. The reason for the absence. I will tell you. Okay, I will tell you why it's not there. And that is exactly what is the point. The absence. That is it for me. Okay. For the education of the public, let us all read 44(1).
Mr. Speaker, 44(1) speaks about nomination of the presidential candidate in the bill clause.
Mr. Speaker,
I'm thought you meant another provision.
Yeah, 43-2. Sorry, 43-2. The provisions are listed there as those qualified to be members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, when you read this provision, let him read. I read. Mr. Speaker, now you see, yes, ma'am. Also, objection of the concern raised by the
we have seen you.
Mr. Speaker, we want to read. And we should read.
Mr. Speaker, point of order. Mr. Speaker, point of order, sir. Before you read, point of order, sir. Mr. Speaker, you've cautioned the comportment of members of Parliament, and I'm sure your warning was apt. But it's so unfortunate that even after your warning, members of Parliament are procedurally using the microphone to give undertone, which is unparliamentary. So similarly, a couple of seconds ago, the leader of government did say, over there they are very combative and we are not combative. And I want to state it to you very clearly that no member on this bench has ever used this microphone since the beginning of this meeting. Yes, so give an undertone. No member on this bench has ever used the microphone to give an undertone. So to me, Mr. Speaker, you should be able to talk to the dogs and you should be able to talk to the boys.
Thank you. I still, Mr. Speaker, I still reckon with the provision to stand order. But I did not say the other side is not disciplined. I said on this other side we are disciplined. Honorable General Mark, your proposal said we are disciplined too. And I said good. But Mr. Speaker, for us to come to a conclusion, we have not seen anywhere directly telling us in the bill amending the constitution. It's a provision in there. It's not there. These are speculations that we do. Directly saying we want to amend 76A, 76.1. It's not there. Let me we just decide these things. I have seen where they are coming. We don't want to we have people at heart. We are doing give me a chance, wait, and then you can talk. First, the other paper we have directly amending the Public Act 2012. That's what we have. We don't have in front of us in this house today something about amendment of the Constitution. We have debated on the agenda we have. We have debated. We have completely debated. So bring us the streams of Peter, bring us to order.
Thank you. Now, please, let us maintain decorum and then try to bring this discussion to which one?
The question you asked.
Well, you are endeavoring to answer.
And they interrupted.
Simply, the Attorney General will confirm to you.
Okay, you go ahead.
In this thing, Mr. Speaker, they are attempting to reduce the qualification. He has integrity. He's a lawyer, a senior lawyer. In fact, he's the titular head of the bar.
Let me get there.
Titular head of the bar.
The attorney, learning attorney.
Well, if you tell me now.
Can you comment on this last point from the leader of the opposition?
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I've listened to the argument from both sides of the aisle. Mr. Speaker, one thing I will say for sure and for certain is that the bill that I have before the House I'm piloting is in a progressive state. It's a process. We know the issue which they are raising as the constitutional amendment or change provision in the Constitution. We are very much aware of that. As the leader of government business says, it is our view, our intention to table those by next week Tuesday. Mr. Speaker, we started the process by debating the public elections bill, which, if everything goes well, it will become an act. But up to that stage, Mr. Speaker, we are not attempting to change or alter or interfere with any provisions of the Constitution without going through the due process.
Speaker, there is a specific question to you. Not answered. The lawyer is on balance. Question from Thomas is our head. He's the titular head of the bar. So it's not about junior and senior. He's head of the bar. Even myself, I'm under his tutelage. So you asked a specific question, and the question has an answer, Mr. Speaker.
Will you kindly now draw the attention of the House to the specific provisions?
Mr. Speaker, let him just that this bill is attempting to reduce the qualification of a member of Parliament to contest for an MP from 12 months to 6 months. That's it.
The period for resignation.
You know it's there.
Let me start it again. I have asked a question. I have said we really want to see the direct changes. You understand? Because I have read on a paper, we are talking about the 2022 bill for public elections. And we are about to amend the 2012, which is still in existence. So they are making that they say they have constitutional for direct amendment. That they reducing the 12.
Very fundamental issue is the Constitution cannot be amended save by direct means, no indirect means. And no, what the leader of the opposition has said is there is an attempt in this bill to amend section 76(1). I want confirmation whether that is wrong.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if I will continue.
Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, in answering to the leader of the opposition, Honorable Prejudice, from the bill that he has before you, and that he has before you, Mr. Speaker, there is no express provision in that bill to change the requirements for parliamentarians for 12 months to 6 months.
It's a selection that we have from there. This is what they are referring to. What you are saying now, the people are very we know. See, you're not here on committee stage. That's what I'm saying for you. They are using these representative channels. I want them to understand.
No. I'm not going to do this. My question is specific. Fine. Show me in this bill the provision that attempts to amend the Constitution.
Mr. Speaker, both of us started this thing. Let us go now step by step. I will show you in the bill and then in the Constitution. I think that is
Nobody started quoting 44 and so on.
Let us calm down.
Nothing to do with it. Let me listen to your leader.
No,
because your leader came more specifically on that point. The point about no, I am not giving you the floor. I'm not giving you the floor.
Mr. Speaker, just a minute. Now we are talking between what's in the bill and what's not in the bill, what's in the presentation and what's not in the presentation. One of the ways that we can bring this to a smooth conclusion is when we proceed with what we have here, proceed with the second reading, bring it to its conclusion, and then we really move forward. So now we are stuck.
Wait a minute. You are chairman of the legislative committee. Okay? The leader of the opposition has made specific reference to 76(1). Is there any provision in this bill that attempts to amend that provision?
No, Mr. Speaker. The documents we have here, what we have in front of us is the bill. And where they're talking about is the proposal is representation. So the representation is not what is in front of us in this way.
Why are you mistaking proposal to that?
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just mentioned one, but I'll go back to it first. Now we have been told in this house that the presentation they did is contradicting the bill they submitted to the house. That is very, very serious. This is their presentation during the pre-legislative hearing. This is the information they passed on to members of parliament, including myself, and your presentation must be consistent with the document you are bringing to the house. That is one.
Condition aside, come on to give it to my friend, Mr.
Go ahead. And Mr. Speaker, if they are now saying that their presentation to the committee, which is in this document, stating clearly under bullet point 6, the 1991 Constitution, section 76(1)(b), the 12-month period for the resignation of civil servants and public officials receiving salaries from the consolidated fund and who wish to contest for presidential and parliamentary elections is too long.
Are you reading from the bill?
No, I'm reading from.
Thank you. That answers me.
I'm bringing them together. Then now let me take you to the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Take me to the bill.
You have the bill, clause 42, clause 42(4). Clause 42(4). So now we know, Nick, you are confusing us. Now we know it. That's it. 42(4). But there are many others in this bill. You have read it, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
42(4). What is it telling you?
No, but wait a minute. Before we come, this deals with a separate issue.
No, what I'm saying is there are many others.
I want first of all confirmation as to whether 76(1), to which you made reference, is that with in the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will tell you simple. What I did was as a result of what Nick submitted to us. That is what I did. What I did, I referred to their PowerPoint presentation and made my.
Ignore the PowerPoint.
So now
that's not fun.
I agree, Mr. Speaker. Now that I know they misinformed us, I will be doing that. Simple. I will take you now to 42(4), as I said just now. Simple, Mr. Speaker.
Let's read it.
In the bill, yes, 42.4. In the bill, he says he wants the bill. He says he wants the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, before I left this office, I asked questions and I told you left my colleagues on the other side. So exactly in the bill where we are all to the Constitution. I told that challenge. I'm going to let me now.
No, they've withdrawn 76.
Let me come now. There are
They have withdrawn
two presentations made. Two presentations made. One, the proposed constitutional amendment, which I said I will make next week, that has to do the first clause in the presentation at the committee 32.2 is not here. It's on the statutory instrument, it's on the constitutional instrument. 42.4 is not anywhere in this presentation. It's not in the presentation. So what we have done, as you said, is we have made the basis using the bill to amend the constitution. That's what we have done. We have not done any direct amendment because we cannot amend the constitution directly. We have done any constitutional amendment directly using this one. Say we are going to amend section 76. One. That's an or we are going to amend 32.2. I beg to differ. And I challenge the constitutional report. You know, when I started that, I teased them that next week I will lay the constitutional instrument. I have pleaded with them. Let us continue the debate. We have not used this bill to amend anywhere in the constitution. No, we are. For the sake of sincerity of purpose, for the good of this nation, let them allow us to continue the debate on the second reading. I beg through your leadership. Thank you. No, we are. No one else to answer.
No, it's not able. That is one that talks to book for us.
Let me finish, Mr. Leader. They are not in a hurry because these documents will not take effect until we deal with constitutional amendments. I'll just refer you to one.
Yes, I'm not extremely relaxed. I'm just concerned about you.
No, I'm very relaxed. I've just referred you to one clause just now. But I don't want us to go away from that. Is that clause not attempting to amend the constitution? What? No, the constitution is very clear that the president will fix the date. It's very specific, not as stated here. And Mr. Speaker, you also want to go to clause 2b, the number of electoral commissioners. As of now, it is fixed in
which clause?
Clause 2, sub-clause 2b. As of now, in the Constitution, it is fixed.
But that is the correction of your mistake.
I agree, yes. Okay. That's what we are saying. Thank you very much.
Correction is fine.
Mr. Leader, no worry. We think we will do this at the right time.
So listen to Tara.
Mr. Speaker, have you seen it?
I have seen 42.4.
No. You have seen 42.4. Go to clause 2, sub-clause 2b.
Is another one?
Yes, another one.
You don't want to give us time to read this document.
No.
It's not enough.
Please, your leader is the one I'm addressing the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
No, it's for the rest of your membership.
I'm the echo in your voice, so it goes to the back.
Does he need it? I think your voice is loud enough. It doesn't need any amplification.
The honorable attorney to say doesn't need to write it.
Which clause again? 2.
Clause 2, sub-clause 2b. Take your time and read. This SO2, not service now with this. This is all big businesses. The Attorney General, the leader of government business, the Deputy Minister of Justice, Mr. Speaker. No. Have you seen it, Mr. Mr. Speaker,
I have.
that is also attempting to amend the Constitution.
Attempting.
And I want you to go back to what you started with. Keep going, Mr. Speaker. Satisfy SO2, not for amending the Constitution.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, you know, I will have an answer. If you will allow me, please, I want to address one last question. Okay.
Let me come back to you, leader of the opposition.
It's a Q&A session, Mr. Speaker.
No, I really want to satisfy myself about one issue, which is still lingering.
Ali.
Do you think that proceeding with this bill will in any way prejudice the position of your side?
Ali.
And frankly, I'm not giving you the floor.
Mr. Speaker, trust me, I am genuinely making that submission.
Because I will not allow any side to be prejudiced in their position by any consideration of any bill before this House. Please let this House know the extent to which you feel your position will be prejudiced by continuing with the second reading of this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since it is subjective, it is difficult to quantify.
Ali.
But I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, that for us on this side, making our debate effective to convince colleagues right across the aisle in supporting eventually some of our positions we will want them to support. At this stage, if we attempt to do this, it will not make our debate effective.
So it's a question of the effectiveness of the debate.
Yes, sir.
On your side.
Yes, sir.
Can I have the
I want to make last conversation before I go. I will start one after the other. He said we are about to do constitutional amendment. They said we are about to do constitutional amendment. We want to alter the constitution indirectly. So
instead of directly by way of the instrument to which you made reference.
Yes, exactly.
And that is untenable.
Yes. Thank you.
You must accept that.
Bring
Yes,
suggestion for everybody.
I have said
If one on this one and the other, we want to know
there must be a
which
on which
then
you
if
create the
this
platform.
one,
But to say direct amendment using this one, citing a provision 76, 32, 2, and they accepted. It's not here. So for me, the need for us is quite different. I made a series of references, even I read the provision one after the other. 108. 108. But tactically, we have got the debate.
so you don't pull.
Let me skip the debate.
This one? And this you
I
don't
don't know
pull.
what you're talking about. But we are not abrogated any provision.
This you don't pull on.
Any provision.
I know.
What we have done
I can't focus on this.
so don't put
Don't tell the Malay go
a
first.
spanner into the way of the provision. You are supposed to have that you don't help
Okay, we say they can't talk.
We have provided that if there is anywhere directly we are saying section 76 is going to be altered for because of 12 to 6 months. If it is there, I will just withdraw. I will just withdraw all of the documents we have and wait till we finish. It's not there. No, we are.
What about the others?
Thank you very much.
The others.
Okay, I want to address this question.
What about the others?
The same question that I had addressed to the leader of the opposition. The question is, I asked the leader of the opposition whether his position would be prejudiced in any way if we were to continue with the second reading to finality. May I ask you, similarly, will your position be prejudiced in any way if we discontinue the discussion on the second reading?
Yes, sir. We have enough work to go. 6 months towards election. So any major changes to the traffic laws, you should not calculate the time. You have to do registration of in September. Registration of this is June. July is tomorrow. Tell me, Mr. Speaker, we are going to use 2 weeks to enhance the law. 2 weeks, we are going for recess towards the end of July. We are going for recess towards the end of July. We should be recess the end of July. That is our let's talk about. We are going to talk until the end of August. Tell me, registration for voter registration is in September. And 6 months towards election, it should not be anything of this.
Mr. Speaker.
It's a very important thing to say.
It's not clear. There are another person that will allow.
Honorable members, I will stand the House down for 10 minutes and I will invite the leader of the opposition, the leader of government business, and the leader of C4C and NCC to my chambers right now.